August 2nd, 216 BCE, near Cannae in southern Italy. Imagine looking down from a low rise at a plain covered with soldiers. Below you stands the largest Roman army ever gathered up to that point. Tens of thousands of infantry packed into deep ranks. Roman citizens, Italian allies, heavy infantry trained to win by discipline, pressure, and relentless forward movement. Their commanders believe they finally have Hannibal exactly where they want him. Open ground, no hidden valley, no fog, no freezing river crossing, no mountain ambush. Just a flat battlefield where Rome's numbers can do what Roman pride demands: crush him. Across from them stands Hannibal Barca, a Carthaginian commander from North Africa, still young, already feared across Italy and far from home. His army is smaller, around 50,000 men. Gauls, Spaniards, Libyans, Numidian horsemen, veterans of brutal campaigns, but exhausted, isolated, and surrounded by enemies. He has no safe road back to Carthage, no endless stream of reinforcements, no friendly city waiting behind him with fresh legions. Rome has brought almost everything it can bring, around 86,000 men. Hannibal has roughly half that number. By normal logic, this should be the end of him. Roman commanders see the mathematics. Roman soldiers see the same thing: 2-1. The best infantry in the Mediterranean. Perfect terrain for a direct assault. 2 consuls of the Republic leading the army. Many in the Roman camp believe they are not marching toward danger. They are marching toward revenge. But 6 hours later, the plain of Cannae will become the worst killing field Rome has ever known. Ancient sources describe around 70,000 Romans dead. Carthaginian losses are far lower, perhaps around 6,000. A Roman army larger than many cities will vanish in a single day. Dozens of senators will be killed. 1 consul will die on the field. Rome's command structure will be shattered, and the name Hannibal will become something more than the name of a general. It will become a warning. So how did he do it? How did a smaller army destroy a force that outnumbered it so heavily? Why did Roman discipline, usually Rome's greatest strength, become a trap? And how did Hannibal turn the largest army Rome had ever assembled into a crowd that could barely move? To understand Cannae, we have to go back to the war that created it. This was the Second Punic War. Rome against Carthage, 2 great powers fighting for control of the Western Mediterranean. Carthage had been rich, commercial, and powerful for generations. Its influence stretched across North Africa, parts of Spain, and key trade routes. But in the First Punic War, Carthage had lost. Rome took Sicily, then Sardinia and Corsica. Carthage was forced to pay crushing compensation. For the Barca family, that defeat was not just political, it was personal. Hannibal grew up in the shadow of that humiliation. His father, Hannibal Barca, had fought Rome before and rebuilt Carthaginian power in Spain. According to ancient tradition, when Hannibal was still a boy, Hamilcar made him swear that he would never be a friend of Rome. Whether every detail of that story is exact or not, Hannibal's life followed that oath. He grew up in military camps. He learned war not as theory, but as daily reality. He understood soldiers because he lived among them. His army was made of many peoples, languages, and fighting styles. Gauls fought differently from Spaniards. Numidian riders fought differently from Libyan infantry. Hannibal's genius was not only that he commanded them, it was that he made them function as one weapon. By 218 BCE, he attempted what many thought impossible. He would not wait for Rome and Spain, he would invade Italy itself. To do that, he had to cross the Alps. He began with a massive army, cavalry, and war elephants. The crossing was a nightmare. Cold, avalanches, hostile mountain tribes, starvation, broken paths. Men and animals died in huge numbers.
But when Hannibal came down into northern Italy, Rome faced something it had not believed possible. A Carthaginian army had entered Italy from the north. Then the victories began. At the Trebia River, Hannibal drew a Roman army into battle under miserable conditions. Roman troops crossed freezing water before fighting. Hidden Carthaginian forces struck from behind. The Roman army was shattered. At Lake Trasimene, Hannibal did something even more terrifying. He used terrain, fog, and timing to create one of the greatest ambushes in ancient warfare. Roman troops marched beside the lake without realizing they were entering a trap. When Hannibal attacked from the heights, they were surrounded and cut down.
Even the Roman consul died. Rome was shaken. So the Republic tried caution. They appointed Fabius Maximus as dictator. Fabius understood what others refused to accept. You do not beat Hannibal by giving him the battle he wants. You follow him, harass him, cut supplies, avoid open combat, force time to become your weapon. It was slow, it was frustrating, and it began to work. But Rome hated it. The people wanted revenge. Many senators wanted action. Fabius was mocked as a man who delayed instead of fought. Rome's pride could endure fear. It could endure loss, but it could not endure humiliation. So in 216 BCE, Rome made a decision. No more delay, no more shadowing Hannibal. They would gather the greatest army in their history and crush him in one decisive battle. The command was shared by two consuls. Lucius Aemilius Paulus was experienced and cautious. He understood Hannibal was dangerous precisely when he appeared vulnerable.
Gaius Terentius Varro was more aggressive. He believed Rome's overwhelming numbers and infantry discipline could decide the war. The two men alternated command by day. That alone was dangerous. One army, two minds, two different instincts. One wanted patience, the other wanted collision. Hannibal watched all of this and understood the Roman weakness. Not weakness in courage, not weakness in discipline. The weakness was deeper. Rome believed that if enough legionaries pushed hard enough, no enemy center could survive. At Cannae, Hannibal built a battlefield around that belief. His army took position near the Aufidus River. The plain looked ideal for Rome, open enough for a huge army, flat enough for infantry, no obvious ambush, no trick visible from a distance. That was the first part of the trap. It looked safe.
On the Roman side, Varro's aggressive approach won the moment. The army formed in an unusually deep ranks. The plan was simple. Drive straight into Hannibal's center. Use weight and numbers to break through. Once the Carthaginian middle collapsed, the rest of Hannibal's army would be split and destroyed. For a Roman soldier standing in that formation, the confidence must have been overwhelming. Everywhere around him were shields, helmets, standards, and men. The line was so dense that the army felt less like a formation and more like a moving wall. But dense formations have a hidden danger. They are powerful when moving forward. They are terrible when forced to turn. Hannibal's deployment seemed to invite exactly what Rome wanted. His center looked weaker than his flanks. There he placed Gauls and Spaniards in a forward curving line, a crescent bulging toward the Romans. These were brave fighters, but not the most disciplined troops in his army. On both sides, held farther back, stood his Libyan infantry. Veterans, steady, dangerous, waiting. On the wings, Hannibal placed the arm that Rome could not match: cavalry. On one flank, heavy Gallic and Spanish cavalry under Hasdrubal. On the other, fast Numidian horsemen skilled at skirmishing and disrupting enemy riders. The Romans saw Hannibal's center and believed they had found the target. That was exactly what Hannibal wanted. He needed Rome to attack the middle. He needed the legions to push forward. He needed their strength to carry them deep into his formation. When the battle began, the cavalry fight erupted first. Hasdrubal's heavy cavalry smashed into the Roman horse on one wing. This was close, violent fighting. Swords, screaming horses, men pulled from saddles.
The Roman cavalry was not equal to the Carthaginian horsemen. Before long, it broke. But Hasdrubal did not lose control of his men in pursuit. That mattered.
A normal commander might have chased the enemy off the field. Hannibal needed something more precise. He needed cavalry that could win, regroup, and strike again. On the other flank, the Numidian cavalry kept the Roman allied horsemen occupied. They darted in, threw missiles, pulled away, and refused to be pinned. They did not need to destroy their opponents immediately. They only needed to hold them long enough. Meanwhile, the Roman infantry advanced. The ground shook under the movement of tens of thousands of men. The legions pressed toward Hannibal's center, where the Gauls and Spaniards waited. Then the lines collided. Roman shields slammed forward, short swords stabbed through gaps. The Carthaginian center absorbed the shock. It bent, it gave ground. It looked as if it was failing. To the Romans, this was the moment they had expected. The enemy center was folding. The great mass of Roman infantry pushed harder. Every step seemed to prove their plan was working. But Hannibal had not asked his center to win. He had asked it to survive. The Gauls and Spaniards retreated slowly, fighting as they fell back. The crescent that had bulged outward began to flatten. Then it bent inward. The Romans followed. Deeper, tighter, more crowded. The front ranks wanted to finish the enemy. The ranks behind kept pushing.
But as they pressed into the center, their own formation began to change. The Roman army narrowed. The flanks lost shape. The dense mass became even denser. Men on the sides were drawn inward. The formation that had looked unstoppable from the front was now exposing itself from both sides. This was the moment Hannibal had built the battle for. His center had not broken. It had pulled Rome in. Then the Libyan infantry moved. On both flanks, Hannibal's best foot soldiers turned inward and struck the Roman sides. Suddenly, Roman legionaries who had been pushing forward found enemies attacking from left and right. They tried to respond, but there was no room. The formation was too packed. A soldier could not easily turn his shield, could not swing properly, could not step back, could barely understand what was happening beyond the crush of bodies around him. Then Hasdrubal returned. After defeating the Roman cavalry, he led his horsemen across the back of the battlefield and helped break the remaining Roman allied cavalry. Now, Rome had no cavalry left to protect its rear, and once the horsemen reformed again, they charged into the back of the Roman infantry. The trap closed. Front, left, right, rear.
The legions were surrounded. What Hannibal created at Cannae was not just a victory, it was a machine for killing. The Romans were brave, they were disciplined, they fought desperately. But courage means little when a man cannot move his arm. Discipline means little when commands cannot travel through a suffocating crowd. The deeper ranks that were supposed to give Rome crushing power now became a prison. Men in the center could not reach the enemy. Men at the edges were cut down. Those trapped inside were pushed, crushed, and suffocated. The fighting continued for hours. Lucius Aemilius Paulus died on the field. Many senior officers fell with him. Varro escaped with survivors, but Rome would remember the day as a catastrophe beyond anything it had suffered before. By late afternoon, the killing was over. The numbers reported by ancient sources are almost impossible to imagine. Around 70,000 Romans dead, thousands more captured, dozens of senators lost, a huge part of Rome's fighting elite erased in a single day. Carthage lost far fewer men, with the heaviest losses falling on the center that had held long enough to make the trap possible. Cannae became the perfect example of double envelopment, a smaller army allowing a stronger enemy to advance, then striking the flanks and rear until escape became impossible. It was not brute force, it was timing, patience, psychology. and absolute control of every part of the battlefield. After the battle, Hannibal's commanders urged him to march on Rome. One famous tradition says that Hannibal, his cavalry commander, told him he knew how to win victories, but not how to use them. But Hannibal did not attack the city. Perhaps he lacked siege equipment. Perhaps his army was too worn down. Perhaps he expected Rome's allies to abandon the Republic. Perhaps he believed Rome would finally negotiate. But Rome did not surrender. That is the part of the story that makes Cannae even more extraordinary. Many states would have collapsed after such a defeat. Rome did the opposite. It banned serious talk of peace. It raised new forces. It armed men it would once have never considered. It avoided giving Hannibal another perfect battlefield. For years, Hannibal remained in Italy, dangerous and undefeated in major battle, but Rome changed the war. It attacked Carthaginian power elsewhere. It wore him down. It learned. And eventually, a Roman commander named Scipio would carry the war to Africa. At Zama, years later, Scipio defeated Hannibal and ended Carthage's last chance. That is the tragedy of Hannibal. At Cannae, he achieved tactical perfection. He destroyed the greatest army Rome had ever sent against him. He proved that genius could turn numbers into weakness and discipline into death. But he did not destroy Rome's will, and in the end, that mattered more. Cannae shows what one brilliant commander can do to an army. Rome shows what a civilization can survive when it refuses to accept defeat. On August 2nd, 216 BCE, Hannibal became immortal, not because he won the war, but because for one day on the plains of Italy, he created the battle every general after him would study, fear, and try to understand.